With 2025 quickly approaching the end and us on the latter part of the month, I know a lot of us may feel like we didn't do enough this month, or it's things we could have did better, or things like that. So in today's video, I'm be explaining and showing y'all how y'all can come back in the last, it depends when you're watching, 3 to 2 months of the year. And I know some of us may have got to a slow start this year. Some of us really took this year for granted in a sense. So today's video will be teaching you how to come back from your mistakes that you have made this year, because you can always come back from anything. I'm gonna just say that right now. You know what I'm saying? If you're willing to put in the work, you will come back from anything. But before we get deeper into the video, let me just give you a little background on myself. My name is Rod. I'm a 17-year-old content creator, and I have my own clothing brand. And I'm an entrepreneur also. The clothing brand is entrepreneurship, but like I have other stuff going too that's still in the lines of working. But I'm gonna be teaching you how to come back in this year, and some of the things that I did this year, and some of the things that I know I can improve on. And I'm just give y'all my philosophy, just like that. But with all that being said, I ain't gonna do too much more talking. Let's get straight into the video. I got 4 steps for us to get this year complete on the best note. Let's get into it. All right, y'all. So it might be a little inverted, but the first thing I got for y'all to compete and come back is skill. And what that means is building a skill. This skill can be, a lot of times when we think of skill, we think of monetary, which is good. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that's what you should be prioritizing when it comes to building a skill. But you can build skills like crossword puzzle. You can do a crossword puzzle real good. That's a skill. You know what I'm saying? And you can get paid for that if you do it on TikTok or however way you can do that. But building a skill is very important, and I think very vital on how y'all close out the year, because I think going forward, you're going to start seeing a lot more things like shift, with the development of AI, development of all these platforms, things like that. Whereas IRL jobs, I'm not saying they're going away. I don't think they're going away till like probably at least 10 to 15 more years before we really start seeing them go away. But learning the skill will be very valuable, because you can do that on the side, and when you do that on the side, you can get an extra, depending on the skill, $2,000 to $3,000. And a skill I recommend y'all do is learn how to run ads, because if you learn how to run ads, you can sell water to a well, quite frank. You know what I'm saying? And even if you don't want to do your own business, you can have another person's business. You can run their ads and do it for them. And they pay you some money. And it's not going to take too much out your time for real. You know what I'm saying? Because I recommend online skills. Now, in IRL skills are good, but online skills will save you the most time and make you the most money. And that's one thing I had experience with. So definitely prioritizing skills. And even if you have a job and you want to stay at your job, don't want it to replace it, it's still a good way to bring some extra income in for y'all. And yeah, just so y'all can live better, it may bring a couple bill money in, a couple rent money in, or you can scale it high enough to where you live off it. Your whole entire expenses is on that, but that's really it when it comes to skill. One thing I recommend when y'all getting into skill, just remember to take in knowledge and continue to learn about the skill, and then start getting some reps in. And then that's how you're really going to create, to the empire that you may want it to be, But if you don't want it to be a big empire, just take the knowledge, do some reps, and then, you feel me, like, go with it like that. But skill is definitely, I think, a very important thing for y'all to do. But with all that being said, I ain't gonna chit chat too much more. Let's get straight into number 2. All right, y'all. Number 2, what I have is identify your goals, man. And identifying your goals is very important. Now, these can be goals for the end year or goals for next year. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like this is very important because, well, honestly, if I'm being honest, I feel like your goals for next year should be your in-year goals too. You know what I'm saying? But let's say next year, one of your goals was, okay, boom. I know I talk about a lot of monetary stuff on this channel, but that's just kind of like the vibe of the channel when it comes to self-improvement, that a lot of people will process and understand it in. So that's why I talk about it a lot. But say your goal is, say your goal is, I want to make $10,000 a month next year. I want to start that, and I want to get something like that, right? You need to identify your goals. So if that's your goal, now you need to start picking at what you can do daily to get that accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Let's say your goal was you want to make $1,000 a month off content, right? So what are you going to do on the daily to do that? Okay, boom. I'm gonna post on Instagram Reels three times a day. I'm gonna post on TikTok 3 times a day. I'm gonna post on YouTube once a week. You know what I'm saying? And things like that. And that's eventually how you're going to be able to get that goal. But the main start of it is identifying your goals, because what a lot of people do when the New Year's comes, New Year's resolution, they say they want to lose weight and all this stuff. I'm just giving y'all an example, right? People say they want to lose weight and do all this stuff, but what they failed to do was they failed to place daily systems in their life. You know what I'm saying? Where they just jump and say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym every day. Their body's not used to that. So when their body starts saying, I'm sore and I don't want to do this no more, that's when they eventually quit and fall off of what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? But the way to reverse that is to plan for it, right? Go in little increments. You don't have to go to the gym every day. You feel me? You can go to the gym maybe 2-3 times a week if that's what's need to be done. But what you need to be doing is studying what you could do to make up for that. So boom, if you're doing that, go eat some good foods. Start studying foods you can eat. Protein, vegetables, and all that good stuff like that. I'm not too strong. That kind of goes into the next tip, but I ain't going to spoil the tip for y'all. But definitely, bro, identify your goals and identify your daily systems that you're going to do for them goals. You know what I'm saying? Because you want to become a big content creator, plan for it. If you really want to say I'm gonna start next year, which I don't think you should. I think you should start today. But you really want to say I want to start next year, at least have a plan out and your systems ready on what you want to do. But one thing about that I will say is be ready to pivot on your systems, because one thing I realized is with experience, bro, you're going to have to pivot in some type of form. Because I'll be honest, when it came to me, I was posting one time on YouTube, I was posting one video a day. But then when I started putting that into action, I realized, okay, boom, I'm limiting myself right now. What did I do? I pivoted and said, boom, okay, I'm gonna post 3 times a day on TikTok, 3 to 4 times a day on TikTok. Okay, boom, I'm posting once a week on YouTube. Okay, boom, let's make that once a day. So now that I'm doing that, I kind of revamped everything in my whole systems as I got into it. Y'all can really save some time like that if y'all start today and then identify your systems today, but start today with them and start testing them out. So by the time the next year come, you can already kind of have not finalize on what you need to do, but have a good idea of what you need to do, and you're already past a certain hump of where people that started on January 1st are doing. Yeah, but with all that being said, man, that's it for tip number 2. Let's get into tip number 3. And tip number 3 is probably the most important tip on this video. Let's get into it. Tip number 3 to come back this year is your health. All right. And your health is very important, bro. And I'm not saying you have to get on here and you got to eat vegetables all day. You got to eat healthy proteins and all this stuff. But one thing I came to realize is, bro, I'm not even like the most healthiest person in the world. So I'm not going to sit there and lie to y'all. You know what I'm saying? But if in case y'all wondering, about 5'10" and I'm about 155 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not unhealthy, or I'm not like super healthy for them numbers. I'm not built to the bone or anything like that. So yeah, but one thing I realized is that, bro, if aesthetics is going to be the reason why you continue to keep pushing and doing your health right, let that be it. But if you like the way you aesthetically look, bro, you're not really too much tripping on that, bro. At least make sure you're doing something to either keep yourself, both is great. Do something to keep yourself active and at least eat somewhat kind of clean. You know what I'm saying? What I mean by that is you're not going eating McDonald's every day. You're not going eating ice cream, brownies, honey buns, all this stuff every day. That's like really unhealthy. But what I mean by that is, okay, boom, let's say this, boom. A lot of y'all, if y'all are under the age of 18, what I recommend y'all do is y'all start cooking. You get a main dish, whether that's spaghetti or anything. Any main dish you like, really, but I say put some vegetables on the side. Really search up how to really cook your vegetables. I'm not gonna go too much in detail of that today in this video because that's not my place. But go in the healthiest way you can cook your vegetables and start eating vegetables every day. Even if you eat unhealthy stuff, eat vegetables every day. You know what I'm saying? At least get some consumption of vegetables or fruits every day, or both, honestly. And when it comes to like being active, you don't have to do nothing too crazy. Like you walking 10,000 steps is you being a good active, keeping your heart rate going, keeping everything good going and everything good flowing. So just remember that, man, when it comes to like really your health. A lot of people think you have to go in and you have to go crazy. You don't have to do that. You can even find a hobby and be healthy. And like basketball, that's a hobby that I do sometimes. I play basketball, I hoop, and that'll be my exercise for the day. You know what I'm saying? If y'all like to box, that could be exercise for the day. Exercise don't have to be this overcomplicated thing where you have to go in the gym, lift weights, do all this stuff. Like that stuff is boring. I ain't even gonna lie. Sometimes it's boring. So sometimes you can make your hobbies your exercise for real. You see what I'm saying? But just make sure keeping yourself healthy. Start preparing, keep yourself healthy, because you don't want to be, older as y'all grow older, or some of y'all may be even older, because I know some older people watching this. And what I mean older, I'm talking about 30, 40. You don't want to be 60 and having these health problems, or you don't want to be 25, 30 and having these health problems. So take advantage of it today, you know what I'm saying, and take attack on it today, so it can prepare you for life, not even just for the next year, but for life. You know what I'm saying? But I lied. Next tip is actually the most important tip, because it goes into almost all of the tips I talked about. I'm telling you, this is the most important part. But with all that being said, let me stop yapping and let's get straight to tip number 4. All right, y'all. And the last final thing I got for y'all is discipline on how to come back on the year, bro. And I'm gonna just say it like this, because on the tips previous, you see we talked about skill, we talked about health. Even with identifying goals, you still gonna have to have that too. But with those two, especially the skills and the health, you got to have discipline. If you don't have discipline, none of the stuff I said will work. You have to have discipline to be able, because sometimes when you're working on your skills, you're not going to be wanting to work. You're not going to be wanting to study, but that discipline has to come in the factor where it's like, okay, boom, even if I don't feel motivated, I don't want to do it, I know I have to complete this. I know I have to do this. And that's where the discipline comes into factor. And that's why it's so important, because without discipline is the building block to everything. I'm telling you, everything you want to do in life, discipline is probably going to be the building block on how you're going to be able to get to that point. If you want to go to the NFL, you got to have discipline. You want to be a gamer, you got to have discipline. You want to be a YouTuber, you got to have discipline. You want to be whatever you want, a doctor, you got to have discipline. In all these stages of life, of anything that you want to be, you have to have discipline. You know what I'm saying? You have to have discipline to keep going, because motivation runs out. Motivation is not for forever, bro. You're going to have motivation some days and be like, yes, I love doing this. I want to do this. And some days you're not going to want to do it. But that discipline is going to be the thing that keeps you from doing it, or keeps you to doing it. Not from doing it, but keeps you to doing it. My fault. But exactly, bro. Discipline is one of the major ways of life. It's the building block of life, if I'm being honest. It's one of the major building blocks when it comes to you yourself and doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have discipline and faith. Discipline and faith are the two most important things. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't have both, it's not gonna work. Whatever you're doing is not gonna work. But with all that being said, that's gonna wrap up today's video. I hope y'all enjoyed and y'all really attack this year and go come back on them. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye.